Welcome back to Jonesy Chats Wrestling. We're back after a long-awaited absence. Joined today by none other than NX Steve, special guest, none other than Josh Hayes. How you doing, guys? Coming out of WrestleMania, lot to talk about. It's great to be back. Just for anyone who doesn't know, I'll introduce Josh. Josh, tell everybody about your sort of background in wrestling before we go into the shows.
I've been in wrestling for 17 years, mainly as an announcer. I was a wrestler, which is funny because when we used to do these things, the Jonesy chats, I was on hiatus because of the pandemic. I wasn't over in the UK, but now this is the first one I've done. I am one of the voices of Ultimate Pro Wrestling in the UK. So, I'm a little more relevant now than I was in 2020, 2021.
You're coming out of the Lance Storm School of Training as well, aren't you? Trained by Lance Storm as well. Which is
was indeed.
But no, definitely. So today's topics, everyone's watching, going to be talking about WrestleMania, talking about Raw, talking about Ezekiel, many things like that. I see the frown on Steve's face already, but there we go. So let's start with WrestleMania Night 1. WrestleMania Night 1 then, how are you guys feeling sort of going into the pay-per-view? Were you excited by what they built? I'll go to Steve first.
After Stand and Deliver, I was honestly thinking Stand and Deliver was going to be the best event of the weekend, but I was pleasantly surprised by the end of the weekend that WrestleMania turned out to be as fun and as good as it actually was.
Perfect. What about you, Josh? Were you excited sort of going into the event?
I feel like people look at WrestleMania Saturday as sort of the undercard show and look at WrestleMania Sunday as the main event show. And I think a lot of wrestlers who are booked in those matches on Saturday pick up on that. And so some of them kind of have a little chip on their shoulder. The matches for WrestleMania Saturday sometimes tend to be better because the wrestlers are willing to go harder, if that makes sense. I thought both nights were great, though. We'll talk about it later, but the way that Saturday night ended, nobody saw that coming.
No, I'd agree. I think if you said to me in January, the main event of WrestleMania Night 1 will be Stone Cold Steve Austin, Kevin Owens, I'd have been like, you're crazy. Like, there's no way they're going to bring Stone Cold Steve Austin back. Obviously, it came out many months before that Austin was coming back, but to have this match, they had to do the match. The crowd was so hot for it as well, like that. Let's go down to WrestleMania sort of Night 1. So WrestleMania Night 1 then. If we could go sort of by match, in certain match order, certain match highlights. So obviously the main thing sort of coming out WrestleMania Night 1 for me personally, I thought was Cody Rhodes. The Cody Rhodes debut, a lot awaited. I think it went down well with the crowd. What did you make of it, Steve? Did you enjoy Cody's debut and the match that followed?
I was very, very surprised that we got essentially AEW Cody. The whole the song by Kingdom, the whole entrance that was obviously the same, his look, his attire, the branding. Obviously, I know the branding's a bit hard not to do when he's got a giant tattoo of it on his neck. But yeah, it was almost like a welcome home that was long overdue kind of thing. That's the feeling I got from it. But no, thoroughly good match. I really enjoyed it. It was, like, say, for me, the second best match in the night after Bianca and Becky. But yeah, man, I'm really glad he's back in WWE now, and hopefully he can go on to win the big one now and win the big belt.
I agree. I think you made some excellent points. I think the fact they've got out there, this was WWE's sort of test to see if they could book an AEW wrestler right. Because let's be fair, if they booked Cody bad, you're not going to want to get MJF or Jay Cargill potentially jumping shit when the contracts are up. So what did you think of Josh? Were you happy to see Cody back? And how did you think of the presentation and the match that followed?
It's sort of a lot what Steve said. I mean, we've seen God knows how many WWE guys pop up in AEW, but it was a totally different surreal seeing an AEW guy. And I know Cody started in WWE, but that was, as Steve said, that's AEW Cody. Everything about him on WrestleMania. It was crazy. And I didn't know if they would go back to smoke and mirrors for the entrance or they'd come up with something new. I never thought they would actually use the theme that he's used for the past few years in AEW. The crowd was hot. And then when we saw Cody later on Raw, the crowd was still hot for him. He cut a promo that all the references toward Dusty got a good reaction. Cody's being set up in a very good position to be a top contender for most likely Roman Reigns and stuff like that. Like, that might be our feud of the summer as far as Raw goes.
I'd agree. I think that's a good analysis. I could definitely see Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns SummerSlam, probably. That seems to be a SummerSlam program. Do we think that Cody is going to be the one that finally does beat Roman Reigns? Is he the one that's over enough? Or is the Tribal Chief retaining? What do you think, Josh?
Dude, at this point, I can't call what they're going to do with Roman Reigns. I mean, they've taken the guy in 2022 and turned him into what Bruno Sammartino was in the 70s, to where he seems unbeatable, and it really has this aura that he's going to have that title forever. So I don't know if Cody's going to be the guy. I mean, there's been so many people who people thought might be the guy, and those guys lost.
What about you, Steve?
I
What do
think
you think, mate?
I think hopefully that Money in the Bank this year is going to play a big part into that, because from a one-on-one point of view, there ain't a lot of people on that roster that can beat him. So, I mean, yes, you could possibly look at Rumble for next year and then into Mania, but I think Money in the Bank is the key one. I think if they get Cody with that Money in the Bank briefcase, the opportunistic moment when he's had, I don't know, a 60-minute Iron Man match at some point with someone, Cody comes out, cashes it in, or whoever wins it. I say, yeah, I think Money in the Bank this year will be the biggest deciding factor on how, when, and who is going to beat Roman Reigns.
I'd agree. I think the thing with the Money in the Bank, I wouldn't give it to Cody because I think Cody himself is going to be over enough to be able to sort of win the belt potential challenge. But I'd love to see somebody like a Matt Riddle get it this year. I think Damien Priest and Matt Riddle, they're the pick, I would say, particularly Damien Priest with this new forming of his team with Edge. I think Edge is an expert at cashing in. I think that's something that they could do. But what's your thoughts on that, Josh or Steve? Whoever wants to answer.
If we're talking about Damien Priest, that was something that I didn't know was going to happen. I don't know if we're going to talk about the AJ and Edge match on its own later, but yeah, as far as Damien Priest goes, I don't know whether this is a duo thing with him and Edge or whether this is turning into like a faction that Edge is going to build. I mean, Edge's whole dynamic change has been a little Ministry of Darkness-esque, and so I don't know if that's where they're going. But yeah, Damien Priest is one of those guys who, like, everyone can tell that he's ready to be a main eventer. It's just a matter of where you put him into that section of the card.
Definitely. I think I'd agree with you 100%. Sorry, Steve, after you.
I was just going to say, I think he's fallen out of place the last couple of months. Ever since, like, this weird split personality of he's a good guy until you push him too far. I think it was a really failed attempt. And then hopefully with Edge and this almost kind of like Ministry of Darkness, new brood kind of thing that I think they're doing. I mean, there's rumors going around that Rhea Ripley supposedly next week will be a new person joining, because obviously they teased the breakup this week with Liv. So yeah, I look forward to seeing what they do with it, because it's to be honest, it's Edge really, because it's an interesting character dynamic that we haven't seen a heel Edge in over a decade now. So it's all how he plays it and what he can do with it and how he can help elevate the likes of Damien Priest to a higher point on the match card.
I'd agree. I think you made some excellent points. We'll talk about that a bit more later, the match itself. But going on to night one as well, another thing that stuck out for me was Logan Paul and The Miz versus the Mysterios. Logan Paul, what a start, to be fair. Like, I think didn't see it coming. Really, really good. Fantastic sort of moveset. He's got some great heel heat. And for me, I was surprised. This match blew me away. What were your thoughts, Steve?
He's probably got to be up there as one of like the top 5 celebrity wrestlers that WWE have ever brought in. I mean, I thought Bad Bunny was impressive last year, but Logan Paul this year is he's surpassed that. Like, I know he has amateur wrestling background, but I was not expecting things like Three Amigos, the frog splash, even the little Latino heat on the top rope. It's I was really, really impressed with it. Like, I was not particularly looking forward to it, but he turned out to have one of the best displays of the weekend.
Cool. What about you, Josh? What do you think, mate?
I mean, anytime you have a celebrity involved in wrestling, there's this hesitancy that, like, oh, they're not really part of the business. They don't really get the business. We saw that last year with Bad Bunny. And what my impression of this WrestleMania we just had, I think Bad Bunny might have changed what a celebrity getting into wrestling involves. Because as far as I know, all of the celebrities that were involved in this year's WrestleMania seemed to take their role very seriously. When it came to Logan Paul, it's not just his athleticism and being able to do the moves. Like, any athlete can learn to perform wrestling moves. It was his timing. It was figuring out when to pause, when to look out the crowd to react. So Logan Paul, wasn't just a wrestler. Logan Paul was being a worker, and a very good one. And yeah, I mean, I was very impressed. I mean, it's not like they can book him every week on Raw, but you had a very solidly established heel from this, like, YouTube guy that came in and wrestled a match.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think I was really kind of surprised. I think the thing that shocked me more was the fact that Miz went over. I was very surprised that Miz got the win over the Mysterios. The Mysterios obviously raised been on the cover of W2K22 this year. Were you shocked by that result, Steve? I didn't see that kind of coming. I thought we'd get a babyface win.
I was not actually. I predicted that we would have got a Miz and Logan Paul victory. For me, just it seemed with everything else that was going on with the card, it was one of the matches where to me I think it was almost predictable, if I'm honest. But like I said, I know a lot of people were surprised by it, but for me, no. So I expected Miz and Logan Paul to win, and the ending just tied into it beautifully. I think that it played into it more, and how it sets up a future match between the two of them, I think I'm really looking forward to seeing it.
Definitely. Have you got anything else to add, Josh, before we go on to the next match?
I know that you and I were talking, we were messaging about how Miz turning on Logan Paul didn't really make a lot of sense because, like I just said, they're not going to be able to book him every week on Raw. But I think it's either just to solidify the fact that everyone hates Logan Paul because he's been a very controversial guy outside of wrestling, with a lot of things he's done. My girlfriend legitimately hates him. But I think it's either that, just everybody hates Logan Paul, or the other option is down the road, there's nothing stopping him from coming back for like a SummerSlam and actually doing some kind of grudge with Miz. And you've kind of planted the seed for the potential to have that. Whether they'll do that, I don't know.
No, it's a good point you make. I think I definitely can see him back in it. He's been such a success. He's really over. The whole Paul brothers, their brand is really over at the moment. So I think it's a great sign for WWE if they can get him back to do more work. Going on to the next sort of big match of the card, we've got the Raw Women's Championship, Becky Lynch versus Bianca Belair. Oh my God, this match was so good. We only saw what they could do briefly at SummerSlam in that mess and also at Extreme Rules, but this match was just superb. It told a good story, and crucially, the right person won. Bianca Belair got the win. For me, I was just impressed. This just shows why Bianca Belair is the future, kind of the WWE Women's Division, and this just felt like this could have been a main event match. What were your thoughts on this match, Steve, and how it went and how it played out?
I was like, for Bianca Belair for 2 Manias in a row to essentially set the standard for women's wrestling is amazing. Like when they main evented with Sasha last year, and to put on another killer match this year with Becky was amazing. I mean, you're looking there with Bianca as potentially one of the goats of female wrestling. Like I'm so impressed with her, and I've loved Bianca since her NXT days, and it amazes me how good that she is and how she just makes these matches. I can't find words for it really. I'm so impressed by what she can do, man. But as you said, for the match itself, yeah, it was the right result. It was her story arc. It was her redeeming moment where she got revenge on Becky from SummerSlam last year.
Definitely. What do you think, Josh, of the match and the build and stuff?
The match itself was pretty much what I picked up on, because even in the feuding they were doing on Raw every week, you picked up on their chemistry was very good. I think that Becky's probably the best choice to get Bianca over. And I know Bianca beat Sasha last year, but this is talking about not just putting a title on Bianca, but establishing Bianca as the top female wrestler on Raw. Becky's been wrestling for a long time. And I think Becky helped Bianca work through that match in the sense of doing everything that Becky could do to get her over as much as possible. And yeah, I mean, Bianca's a star in every sense of the word.
Definitely. I think the thing with it is she's just at the top of that division. It just shows you how stacked that women's division is. They've not even had Bayley or Asuka back yet. Isn't this the best women's wrestling division of all time? I think they've just got so many good talents available. And you compare it to AEW, this is the one area I would say WWE have over AEW is the women's wrestler. Where do we see sort of this going next, Steve? Who would you like to see Bianca face next? If you're going to predict anyone, Steve?
I honestly thought Bayley was going to come out Monday night. Bayley's been ready for months. There's a feud there that they never got to finish from last year because obviously Bayley got injured. So yeah, that's where I thought it was going to go, but it's a case of waiting and see. It depends on how this. Hopefully, it's just a black eye that Bianca's got, but hopefully, it doesn't play into her not wrestling for too long.
Definitely. What about you, Josh? Where would you like to see it go next?
Well, I was going to say about Bianca, she got it checked out after WrestleMania, and they confirmed that it wasn't a broken orbital bone or whatever. It's just a bruise. So she's, I mean, as far as I know from a few people that I talked to in the company, she's completely cleared to compete and stuff like that. As far as who she faces next, Bayley coming back would be a great choice. There's also the fact that apparently Asuka has been cleared to compete for a few months now, and they've just been waiting for the right opportunity. So I think it'll be someone like that. It'll be someone fresh. They're not going to, rehash a few that we've already seen Bianca in. They're going to bring in someone to give her a new challenger.
Okay, for me, I think we're going to probably go to. I'd say we're going to get Bianca versus Rhea Ripley, particularly if Rhea Ripley does this heel turn we said earlier in the show. That'll be a first good feud. I can see them doing this Becky versus Bianca thing at SummerSlam again, and I think that'll be hair versus title. I think that's sort of the route they have to go down. There was a lot of teasing of cutting the hair in this feud. I wonder if they're going to go back to that. But if you guys got anything else you want to add before we go to the next match?
The only thing with that you think you have to worry about is that when Bianca, if they turn a heel at some point, then that hair is quite an asset for her as a heel. Like back in her NXT days, that was her main way of winning. So I think putting her in a hair match kind of it'd be interesting to see how Bianca can work around it if she does become a heel again. If she doesn't have that hair, but for me, I wouldn't see it happening just because I say, yeah, she's such a good heel when she uses that hair to her advantage.
I agree. I think you make a good point there. I think the thing with it is the way they would get around that, Steve, is if it's hair versus title, they just have her retain. Then they have to cut her hair. That's the only way they would try and get around that. But I agree with you. You've got anything else you want to add, Josh, from that?
Well, it's just something that I mentioned to you that, like, it's not really a secret if anybody follows her on social media. I found it funny when they did the haircut bit because that's not Bianca's real hair. Her actual hair, which you can see on Instagram very easily, her actual hair is really short. So I just found it funny that they were teasing this spot where Becky's going to cut a hairpiece that was probably replaceable. But no, as far as kayfabe goes, you can absolutely play it out like she cut her real hair. Fine, go for it.
No problem. We've got a comment here. Good morning, Zach, wherever you are. It's so late here in Los Angeles. I'm here for Jonesy Chats Wrestling Zach. I hope you are, Zach. Thank you for checking out the video. Thank you. Not so late. Josh, and likewise. Josh, where are you as well? You're.
I was about to say, he thinks it's late in LA. I'm here in Florida. It's almost 3 a.m.
Yeah, God, both of you guys stand up. But no, thank you for checking out the video, Zach. I hope you enjoy it. So we're going to go on to the next match then. So obviously we're still talking about WrestleMania Night 1. With WrestleMania Night 1, we're going to go on to the Charlotte Flair versus Ronda Rousey match. For me, it was okay. They got 18 minutes. They did what they needed to do. It was a bit messy in parts. I've not really got into the build of this, despite Ronda Rousey's great comeback at the Royal Rumble. For me, it hasn't sort of really worked. And the finish with the big boot was just so sloppy. I felt that this match had lost a lot of the momentum based on the Becky-Bianca match that was earlier on. What were your thoughts of the match, Josh? I'll go with you first.
I liked parts of it. I liked the fact that it wasn't as submission hold heavy as you might expect it to be, because obviously Ronda Rousey, her background's mainly submission based type stuff. With Charlotte, she's got the figure four and stuff like that. I like the fact that it was a lot of shots. The shots looked good. I like the fact that it was kind of a brawl. That's what made it a little different than the Bianca Becky match. But I was shocked by the ending. Because Ronda's lost to Becky that one time at WrestleMania, but that's all we've ever seen. This is the first time she's ever been hit with a move and just flat out pinned like that. And it was sort of anticlimactic because we had just seen a few big spots before that. So just a big boot and a pin is a little underwhelming. There's a lot of, mid-card wrestlers that Charlotte hasn't beaten with that boot.
I think it's unusual to see the Royal Rumble winner that had such momentum coming in and not get the job done. But for me, I agree with you, Josh. You made some excellent points. I think the thing with it, I'd like to see them play up more on the referee, like Charles Robinson and Ric Flair. They've got that connection. They didn't really play up on that at all. What's your thoughts, Steve, of sort of the match and the finish and how it went down?
The match, I think, was saved by the result because it was very sloppy in places. It was okay for what it was, but I said the result saved it from being predictable. Like the crowd were dead for it, if I'm honest. They didn't seem too interested in it. And I think giving Charlotte the win saved it because, I'll say, a lot of people would have guessed there's no way Ronda Rousey's going to come in 2 manias in a row losing a match. Everyone was like, this is Ronda's match to win 100%. She's won the Rumble. She's going to go into Mania. And like I said, I think it saved the outcome of it. And it's just what they do with Ronda from now. I don't know. I don't know if she's still staying there part-time, like doing a Brock essentially, and only coming in sort of here and there. But yeah, I was thoroughly shocked by the result and just the way the match ended as well with a ref bump. It was very. I can't remember that many times where we actually get a ref bump in a women's match. To be honest, it's normally a men's match that happens in. So yeah, very shocked by the result.
I agree. I think it was definitely a bit shocking for me with Ronda Rousey. They need to give her a mouthpiece. Put her with Malcolm Bevins or somebody like that. Somebody who can talk. Really, I think that will carry her because her promos just suck. I'm sorry to say that, but they do. They're not very good. Have you guys got anything else you want to add on this match before we go on to the main event of that one?
Just that WWE does need to figure out what they want to do with Ronda, because what they've done since they brought her back isn't exactly connecting with the fans. I think after the first week she came back, so the first week she came back, she was supposed to be a babyface, and she's like scowling at everyone, and she just looks pissed off, and she cuts this promo where she's like aggressively angry, and then you can tell the next week when she came out, she's smiling and stuff. Somebody backstage had tried to coach her on it, but it doesn't come off as genuine. I think when you remember the Ronda Rousey from UFC, she was popular, but she was aggressive. She was mean. She did have resting bitch face. I think that they need to figure out some way to go down that road with her, because the crowd's not really buying her the way they're trying to manufacture this character that's not the real Ronda.
I agree. We've got a comment here. I'll go to it. Zach's again. Ronda no-sold this whole feud, but the match was decent with a Mer ended. Josh, tell me the Thursday's lottery numbers. I'll split with you 30-70.
It's fair. It's fair.
Yeah, no, definitely.
I'm talking to him from the future.
Yeah, no, finally.
Exactly.
No, definitely. Cheers to the comments, Zach. But no, definitely. We're going to go on to this main event then. So this was obviously the KO show that ended up being a no-holds-barred match. For me, nostalgia to the hype. The crowd was so over. It's great to see Stone Cold Steve Austin back. In fact, we got the match. To be fair, I watched the show on delay. I didn't watch it live. When we got to sort of the talk show, I saw there's 45 minutes left. I thought they were going to have a match, but it's great to see. And Kevin Owens crucially got the lift. Although he didn't get the win, he got the lift. What were your thoughts of the main event, Steve, in the segment? Do you think it's a good way to end WrestleMania Night 1?
I was very shocked that we actually got a match with Austin. Very, very shocked. Like I said months ago, there's no way Austin's going to wrestle. It's been 19 years, man. But for what it was, and obviously you got to remember how old Steve Austin is. I was thoroughly entertained. I thought he had an outstanding match. I think if this had been start of the night, the result would have gone the other way, and you would have had KO winning. But with it being the main event, there was no way you're going to have Steve Austin losing Texas, man. But yeah, thoroughly enjoyed it. Really was a flashback to the early 2000s, where you had Austin in his prime, and I well enjoyed it, man. It was more than what I thought it was going to be.
What about you, Josh?
I'm going to go ahead and say it. Nobody saw that coming. I think, I'll tell you what I was thinking, and I think it's true for the majority of people. I was thinking at most it would be a quick little match, like we've seen, like The Rock's last match at WrestleMania, the last Dallas, where he just rock bottomed Eric Rowan and pinned him. I thought it might be a quick match where it was a stunner, or I thought we might not even get a match. It might be sort of like the Piper's Pit from WrestleMania 21, where there's a confrontation, it ends with a stunner and stuff like that. Send the crowd home happy. I don't think anyone saw a 20-minute match coming from Stone Cold Steve Austin in 2022. I mean, it wasn't just, it wasn't a safe match for someone his age with his injuries. The man has spinal stenosis for 25 years. He took a suplex on a concrete floor. I mean, he was bumping all over the place. Nobody saw that coming. Stone Cold, the chant of "You've still got it" was absolutely 100% true.
Awesome. I think the film with it, I think it's great to see. I wonder sort of whether this is the way they go forward with WrestleMania in the future, whether they do these legends versus the current wrestlers rather than have current stars in matches. Would you be a fan of this way going forward? Do you think they need to go back and have their own stars in main event levels? Because we lost the world title earlier on with Brock, obviously getting the other belt and unifying it, if that makes sense. I think kind of that limited. Because normally you'd have probably the Raw world title in this spot. What do you think of that, Steve?
The problem with that is they're running out of legends that can actually still go, that are retired. I mean, Austin's 20 years past retirement. There's only people like The Rock that's out there that can probably still wrestle a full match. I mean, I know Undertaker said at his Hall of Fame ceremony, do you know what I mean? Never say never, essentially. But you say, yeah, they are running out of these legends that can do this kind of stuff. You're not going to get the likes of Shawn Michaels come back again. You're not going to get Mick Foley come back. Then they're running out. What they're going to do is start relying on like seriously nostalgic mid-carders probably, but there aren't a lot of them left. This is so. You'll probably find you're probably going to get more and more celebrity matches, if anything.
What do you think, Josh?
Yeah, I think that you don't want to do it too much. You want to do it very sparingly, because if you bring in we've already seen Goldberg a few times kind of, fail to deliver the expectations that are set for him in the promos leading up to his matches. And if you do too much of it, if you make it a stipulation at WrestleMania where you're bringing a legend back every year, you're going to set yourself up for disappointment. I do think, I mean, people have talked about the way they built up Roman Reigns, that sort of that dream match for him is against his cousin, The Rock. That one would be good, but I think sort of like the Stone Cold thing, it has to be a perfect storm. I mean, you have WrestleMania in Texas. You set up a feud where a guy's bashing Texas and Stone Cold steps up to defend it. It needs the perfect setup. It can't just be, oh, this retired guy is coming out to wrestle. You need a reason for him to fight. And if you have that and you got somebody who athletically can still go, it could work.
I agree. I think the interesting thing, what I took for it more than anything is, I think Austin will come back again, but I think he's going to do the Saudi shows. The Saudi shows are getting everybody to come out of retirement because of the money they pay. Look for Stone Cold Steve Austin later when he needs to be in Saudi. I'm pretty sure that will happen. I don't know who he'll face, but it'll be interesting to see. If you guys got anything you want to add on night one before we swiftly move over to night two of WrestleMania?
No, go for it, man.
Should we score it? Should we score out of 10? So what did you score out of 10? So I'll go out of 10. I'll go, I think it was a 7 out of 10 show. I thought it was good. I think certain matches were great. I think particularly the Seth and Cody match was incredible. Bianca versus Becky was just another level again. What about you guys, Josh? Score it out of 10. Match of the night as well.
I'd go 8.
8. And what was your match of the night?
Ooh. Can I? I'll say Stone Cold and Kevin Owens. Yeah.
You guys different. What about you, Steve? Score it a match of the night?
I'd probably have to go. I'm going to split you two. I'm going to go 7.5, and I would probably have to say Becky versus Bianca. I mean, for the good that was in there, there was some stuff in there that really didn't need to be on this show.
Yeah, I agree. I think the thing is, what I must say for this is, for the 4-hour pay-per-view we got, there was only like an hour and 30 minutes of wrestling or something like that. So there was a lot of video packages which took away, and the fact you had to cut the New Day match from that one, and you could get the title and the United States title on the pay-per-view. These are errors that we need to address.
The fact they had a 2-hour kickoff show that was full of video packages and recaps. Yeah, it really. What's the point of the kickoff show, especially if they don't have a match on it?
Yeah, I agree with you. I didn't watch the kickoff show. If you guys did both, I feel sorry for you. Like, no, I didn't watch it. I sort of saw.
No, I had it on in the background for me.
Me too. Yeah, I had it on in the background thinking one of the Mania matches would be on that show, and I was shocked that it was just video packages and them talking to people at a table.
Definitely. I think they need to go back to a 90s free-for-all. What happened to the good old days of half an hour, like, countdown show? It's just a lot more better than 2 hours. But
less is more. Less is so much more.
I agree with you, definitely. I'm going to go on to night 2 then. So night 2 opened up with a bang. We had Triple H come out. Obviously, this is official retirement. And great to see him give that homage. I like the fact that he obviously put his boots down that we actually got. And it's a big loss. I think the fact that he's going at the right time because of his health conditions. And I think the thing is, the great work he's done in NXT, I just hope nothing's lost of that. What are your thoughts of Triple H saying goodbye, Josh?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's necessarily what you would call a planned retirement. I mean, we don't know the full details of his heart condition, but I think it's very obvious the doctor told him if you ever get in the ring again, there's a good chance you could die from it. And so, yeah, he has no choice. And I mean, the thing about it is Triple H, not a top contender, but a contender for what we were talking about a few minutes ago of the older generation guys that could still go in the ring. So it is a disappointing loss to never be able to have Triple H in your back pocket again for a match like that.
Definitely. What about you, Steve?
Yeah, I mean, there was potentially a lot more matches on there that he could have had. A Seth Triple H payoff match, I think, would have been great. I think that would have been a real passing of the torch moment there. But yeah, unfortunately, it is what it is. But I'd rather Triple H thinks about his health and his family rather than worrying about entertaining 60 to 70,000 people at a WrestleMania weekend.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think definitely both makes some good points. We then got on to the opening match. This was incredible. This was the 3-way Raw Tag Team Championship. RK Bro, Alpha Academy, Streets Profits. What a match. This is what your tag team division should be. This felt to me like seeing a Young Bucks match in AEW. I had that exact same feeling. This just was generally exciting. You never knew who was going to win. I know, Josh, you knew Matt Riddle quite personally. What did you make of this performance in this match, or what do you think of the match overall?
I think that I like triple threat matches where each, I usually say each person, but we'll say each team in this case, in the tag team, each team plays their role to perfection. You've got Alpha Academy working the heel role, working the spoiler for a lot of the big spots. You've got RK Bro, who are the baby faces. Matt Riddle was amazing with the RKOs that he did getting those pops. And then you got the Street Profits, who leading up to that match were working a little bit of a tweener role. And I mean, obviously, just like his wife, Montez Ford is one of the best athletes in WWE. And being put in an opening match position, Lance Storm used to say, if I'm not on last, I want to be on first. The opening match, you're not a curtain jerker. It's one of the most important matches on the show, and it sets the pace for the rest of the night. So guys like Riddle and Montez Ford are the perfect candidates to be in a match like that.
Definitely. I think the thing with it was such a good match. What about you, Steve? What were your thoughts of the match and how it played out?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people before the start of night 2 would have turned around and said to you that I'm not really looking forward to it. The match is on the card. I'm not enthusiastic about it, but to open it up with this, like I said, it sets the bar for the rest of the show. Simply fantastic match, and yeah, I'm a big advocate for tag team wrestling. So yeah, this was a big win for me. It's just a shame that we don't get this week in, week out on television, and it's just, I know they have this problem where they can't book tag teams, and we get these makeshift teams thrown together, especially with the women's division. But no, this was a big dub for me, a big win.
I agree. I'm going to go to you, Josh, now. So, obviously, we got RK Bro there. They've been the most credible tag team besides the Usos in WWE at the moment. When they do eventually split, which will probably be later this year, do you want to see Matt Riddle go heel? That's kind of the million-dollar question from me. I know you know him personally and stuff.
I would be interested seeing him work heel because it's something I've never seen in the ring or behind the scenes. Like, I know I've told you this a few times before. Steve might already know this, but he's not playing a character on TV. When you interact with him in real life, that is 100% how he is all the time. And so I've never seen him be mean. I've never seen him be like aggressive like that. And so, yeah, I think it would be a good swerve because Randy Orton's got 20 years of being the Viper. He's the guy who stabs people in the back. He's basically the male version of what we expect out of Sasha Banks. And so, yeah, the swerve would be having Riddle do it. But the problem is, as far as I know, there's no precedent. I've never seen Riddle even work heel in a match before. And so you never really know how it could work. I mean, even the guy we were talking about, Stone Cold Steve Austin, he tries to work heel, and even he couldn't pull it off. And so you never really know until you try it, but who knows what would happen.
If he can find that sweet spot where you kind of get that heel that everybody loves, I think Riddle, hopefully Riddle could find that spot, say be himself, but just an evil version, like kind of like what Seth Rollins was when he come back after his injury. He come back, he was still a heel, but everyone loved him. If you can do that with Matt Riddle, you're on to a winner there. But like Josh says, Riddle playing heel is a really strange dynamic concept that no one's seen before. So it would be really interesting to see.
My ideology is that we see, for anyone who watches Cobra Kai, the evolution of Terry Silver. That's kind of what I see Matt Riddle doing. That hopefully that you got this slow turn, you got him sort of eventually sort of flipping, but him as a heel, it'll be great. I just hope they don't do Randy because we've seen Randy before. But going to go to the comment here. Got one from Darren Drew. Hey, hi Darren. Thank you for checking out the stream so early. Hope you're well, mate. Thank you for checking out the stream. If you guys got anything else you add about this first match before we go to match 2, we've got Gableton's that came out as well.
I wanted to say something about what Steve just brought up about a heel that still gets over. I instantly kind of thought about with Riddle, you could do something sort of like you did with the New Day in 2015. You remember when those guys were heels, but they kept a lot of their same dynamics. They got more over as heels than they even did as baby faces when the crowd was rejecting them. That could be a route you could go with Riddle, even though I'm a fan of Terry Silver. If you could pull that off, I'd love to see that too.
Definitely. Oh yeah, the last thing on this match as well. Obviously, we had Gable Stevenson there as well. Came out, WWE's newest signing, in a prominent spot. This guy's going to go far. I think potentially future WrestleMania main eventer. Are you excited by this signing? What do you think this means to WWE? I'll go to you first, Steve.
I'll be honest with you. I wish they hadn't made him a draft pick last year. I think that was really stupid. The fact that it's been nearly a whole year and this is his first appearance since then. But like I said, hopefully, do you know what I mean? He's not going to come across green. He's going to do really well. You want nothing more than people to succeed. But yeah, so hopefully, like I said, it's just you waiting. It's WWE Creative now that has the final say on what happens with him. So yeah, hopefully he does really well.
What about you, Josh?
So, yeah, they've been promoting this guy, referencing him every now and then for a year, and they've been plugging him like he's the second coming of Kurt Angle. What people need to remember about Angle is he wasn't just one of the greatest amateur wrestlers of all time. Kurt Angle had what I was saying about Logan Paul earlier. Kurt Angle had that it factor and that ability to get the business. Whether or not Gable Steveson has that, we don't know yet.
No, I agree. I think the only thing that kind of concerns me about him, I think he may have the ability in ring, is the charisma. Like, I wasn't getting that from him on the promo. The promo he seemed to be a bit wooden, but that could be fixed. You can put him with somebody like an MVP or even Malcolm Bivens if necessary. But let's see what he does. It's certainly great to see WWE get a future star in. And I want to see Gable versus Gable as a match. Let's make that happen, please, WWE, at some point. But
I wouldn't be surprised if Chad Gable has to change his name again now.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good pun, to be fair. Definitely. Then going to go to this kind of horrible match. I have to discuss it. Omos versus Bobby Lashley. But to me, I just think it was horrible. Omos is in a spot he's not ready. It's horrible to see Lashley this time last year, world champion, obviously in this spot. I know he's injured, he come back, but it was just a really, really horrible match. And this was Giant Gonzalez in 2022. I never thought we'd see Giant Gonzalez again, but you've had Braun Strowman you released that was talented. You've got sort of Commander Aziz that's got some sort of talent, but you're still pushing Omos. What's your take of it, Josh? Am I right or wrong? What do you think of the match as well?
I'm more of a fan of Omos than you are, but I mean, I don't dislike him. I remember.
I don't dislike him personally.
I remember Omos's debut match last year, though, that tag team match with AJ, and he was so over when he tagged in. Yeah, there's a certain appeal to him. My main complaint has been he's been cutting promos on Raw, and he can't talk, and that would hold him back a lot. I haven't completely given up on him. The only thing that I don't like, there's a few things that were done on Raw that could have been done at Mania. We didn't have any betrayals at WrestleMania. I don't count them as in Logan Paul. I wish they had just done the MVP bit at WrestleMania because that entire segment as a whole would have been more memorable.
Yeah, I called this turn since January. I said in January that this would kind of go down. It was kind of pretty obvious for me that this would happen, but it's a great move. We'll talk about that later. Steve, what did you make of this match and of us?
This was a TV match. Like, you could have simply just had this on Raw and not had it at WrestleMania. Yeah, it is what it is. Unfortunately, I think this is more to get Bobby over as a face on his return. Because that's essentially where Bobby is now. That he is one of the top baby faces, especially after Raw and what happened.
I think the only trouble you've got with this is Bobby isn't a particularly great talker either. So you take an MVP from Bobby, put him with Omos. Bobby's now short a little bit, but for me, when you can't have a good match with AJ Styles, I knew we were going to be in trouble. Like, Omos, to be fair, is just so very limited, and this just felt like a squash. You've put a whole year of building to Omos now, where he's not lost to anybody, he's been destroying everyone. That's kind of gone in the bin. Can Omos recover from this? That's the $1 million question.
Yeah, I mean, the guy's gone undefeated, really, in singles competitions. Bobby Lashley is a superior athlete, so he has to lose at some point. So losing to Bobby Lashley isn't as bad as Karrion Kross coming in and losing to Jeff Hardy, let's be honest. So, yeah, he'll recover. But it's that giant figure role. Like, I know that there's been big guys in the past that haven't really done, like, as well. Like, you think of... who's the big guy who wore the hairy bodysuit?
Giant Gonzalez.
Giant Gonzalez. So yeah, Giant Gonzalez. Yeah, you think about people like that, and they don't really tend to favor well. And same with Great Khali. So hopefully, Omos can break this mold and go on and do something better.
What about you, Josh?
I haven't completely given up on him. That's all.
Interesting note. This is just a backstage note. Undertaker is a big fan of Omos. So Undertaker has said to Omos, if they're not treating you right, come to me and I'll sort it, which very interesting. But no, definitely, let's move kind of forward with this then. So we then had probably one of the matches of the weekend. We had this Anything Goes match, Sami Zayn versus Johnny Knoxville, a.k.a. the Home Alone match, as I like to call it. It would have been there was everything there for Home Alone. What a superb match. They brought a celebrity in. Coming into this match, I thought Johnny Knoxville, he's not going to really bumps because of obviously his history and stuff like that. But this was absolutely superb. The spot of Wee Man, all the different gimmicks and stuff like this. This felt like a very Attitude Era type match. I was impressed. What do you think of it, Josh?
It exceeded my expectations. I know when Knoxville first came in back for the Rumble and stuff, there was a lot of rejection of like people didn't want Knoxville coming into wrestling, taking up spots. But the payoff was this match. That I mean, Sami Zayn, one of the best performances of his career, taking all of those crazy bumps. Wee Man, I didn't see this coming. That Wee Man was ridiculously over when he came out from under the ring. That pop was huge. When Sami Zayn booted him in the face, the boos in that stadium were ridiculous. I mean, the crowd was so into that match. I used to love Jackass back in the day. So people like Chris Pontius showing up, I was there for it. Yeah, I loved it. I mean, it was comedy. It was very Tom and Jerry-esque. Yeah, it was great.
What about you, Steve?
Yeah, but just to back off what Josh said there, yeah, I was thoroughly entertained. It was more than what I was expecting it to be. I just thought this was going to be a simple, straight-up one-on-one match, and then we get ridiculous things like. Let's be fair. This give a bit of credit to WWE here. The fact that giant 3-4 foot hand was not seen on any camera until the random point where it just collapsed Sami Zayn in the face. I was like, some great directing there because I didn't see, no one saw it yet. This thing's like 4 foot tall.
Yeah.
I'm surprised one cameraman didn't catch it at any point, but we are thoroughly entertained by this.
I think the attention to detail here was superb. Like, this is what WWE should be doing. I think this was just really refreshing to show what you can do where you don't just have a one-on-one singles match. WWE bring this sort of style in. There's nothing stopping them doing this similar type of style. I'm not saying every week in the 24/7 division. They should be doing something kind of similar. Which
yes.
Is brilliant, potentially. Don't have to be to that extreme where they've got Jackass themed stuff, but you could do that location stuff like that. But no, I just thought it was great. And it just shows how great Sami Zayn is. What a professional, carries the way. But I loved it. I thought it was so good. Have you guys got anything else to add before we go to the next match?
I just want to say we've now got our 6-month storyline until SummerSlam. Who pulled the giant hand?
Yeah, you do know the payoff to the storyline. I'll tell you now. It is Mae Young, Mark Henry's son.
Yes. Yes.
That is the payoff. No, I'm joking.
Yeah. You're booking it. You're booking it.
Nah, that's good, man. I'd go with that.
Yeah, definitely. Be good with it for nostalgia. Going to go next. So we had the women's tag team titles. So we obviously had Carmella, Queen Zelina Vega, Sasha Banks, Naomi, Shayna Baszler, Natalya, Rhea Ripley, Liv Morgan. This was an okay match. I did what I need to do. Sasha and Naomi got the belts. For me, it was okay. I was surprised to see Sasha in this spot. Last year, main event at WrestleMania. This year in a tag team, it was a bit sort of, she could do better. But I was glad everyone got time on the camera. What do you think of the match, Josh, and the new champions?
I'm here for the new champions. I think that Sasha and Naomi, they got something good to work with, even though, as I said before, if they go the same route they've gone with Randy Orton in the past, like, we're going to see Sasha turn on her. Like, I think there's a team of writers backstage that just repeatedly insist on doing that with her as sort of a running gag. The match itself, I'll be honest with you, I don't remember a whole lot about it. I think it was sort of, I think they wanted to do both women's title matches on night one, and they wanted to have a women's match on night two is the reason they created this 4-way tag match. But I can't tell you much that someone like Shayna Baszler even did in the match.
What about you, Steve?
There is one spot, and it's the 2 Towers of Doom in either corner. That's the one spot I remember from this, is where we had like 4 of them in one corner, 4 of them in the opposite. My problem with this is that this was a really I thought it was a foretold one, but I knew Rhea and Liv weren't going to win. I really wish WWE would cut Liv a break and give her a goddamn title, because let's be honest, she deserves one, and she's still never won anything since she's come into up to the main roster. But yeah, so they picked up a win a couple of weeks ago. And then Sasha and Naomi picking up a win on TV as well really shocked me that they would go on to win this, because I thought Zelina and Carmella would have retained, but that was my biggest shock to it. Is that my biggest shock was who actually won the match. But with again Raw coming into it, we now know what's going to happen with Liv and Rhea, which irritates me personally, because aesthetically they're the best looking team there. Do you know what I mean? They complement each other. They look like your Legion of Doom. They look like your Bushwhackers. They look like it's a tag team that should be a tag team, but the other 3 are just thrown together 6. Like we had a tag team match where we had 8 separate entrances. That just says it all for me.
Yeah, it says it all when they're not coming out the same entrance, the same themes and stuff like that. And I agree with you. You make some excellent points. I think the thing with this is I really thought this was a place for Liv Morgan to finally get a belt, and this would be the story arc they've been working on the year where she finally comes good. But let's see what they do. Anything else you want to add, guys, before we go on to the next match?
I do want to say about Liv Morgan really quick that the mistake WWE's made, and they've made this with other wrestlers in the past too, the point of an underdog is they ultimately come back and win. If there's a person who always loses, they're not an underdog, they're just a loser.
Yeah, no, I think you've hit the nail on the hammer. Definitely, I agree with you there, Josh. Always a nearly person, but never quite getting there. But no, crucially, I think they're going to lose again on Raw next week. I think we've already said that kind of in the show. I think they're not winning the belt next week, that's for sure. I'm going to go on to the next match. We obviously had this dream match, Edge versus AJ Styles. Going into this sort of pay-per-view, I thought this is the one match that feels WrestleMania for me. I feel this is a huge match. Crucially, AJ Styles come out. He unfortunately got injured on his entrance, which kind of put him in a bad mood, to be fair. The match was really, really good. I kind of enjoyed it. I think it sort of delivered what it needed to. And it never was ever going to be as good as the Cody Seth match, but they did what they could with it. Crucially enough, you get Edge getting the win. When Damien Priest comes out, you then get Edge and Damien Priest looking at each other, and we get something like this. I'll show you the clip here of they took this finish, I think, of Damien Priest from the 1991 show Twin Peaks. So let me get this video clip of it, and you'll see a young Damien Priest, I'd say. So let me show you. As you can see, that finish at the end where you got Edge and Damien Priest taken from 1991, like they did with the Creep Show last year, The Fiend, last year when he came back. That's what they did. I think the thing with it, I like the finish. The thing what I liked about this, though, although it was a sloppy finish for WrestleMania, you're building something. This is the one thing coming out of WrestleMania I felt where they're going somewhere. We've got something new. It was almost like Commander Aziz last year at WrestleMania debuting. We were getting something new. What did you make of the finish and Edge's new partnership with Damien Priest there, Josh?
I think it could be something good to do with Priest. That's for sure. Going into the match, I was wondering if the Edge heel turn was necessary. I kept being a little curious about if they had actually made this dream match be babyface versus babyface, and then I think the match itself could have been better if it was face Edge versus face AJ Styles. Because the match, like Edge working heel, the match was a lot slower paced than I was expecting. And I think a lot of the crowd picked up on that because there were certain points in the match where the crowd wasn't into it, as much into it as you would expect them to be in a match between AJ and Edge. I wonder how, if they had this match be face versus face, do something on the Raw the night after where Edge turns heel and goes crazy, do something at this WrestleMania Backlash where Edge turns heel and you bring in Damien Priest. I just wonder if it was a little more rushed than it needed to be. I'm not saying that it won't work now because of how it was done. I think that this could be a good direction to go with Priest, but the match for me didn't live up to what, if you told me in January it's going to be Edge versus AJ, it didn't live up to what I would have imagined in my head.
I agree. I think the thing with it is, I think they could have built this much up, particularly the Damien Priest thing. I would have loved it for 3 months now. We would have had Edge talking to somebody off camera. You didn't see. You could have really built that up of who he's talking to. But for me, it was very devil's advocate. This match had such a hype, though. It was always going to be hard to kind of deliver. What do you make of it, Steve, the finish of the match and the new tandem?
Yeah, I mean, just the same thing as what Josh was saying. I really don't think that this needed to be heel versus face. I mean, I said this before they did the initial turn, was that you could have had Rock Hogan vibes with AJ and Edge. If you could have the two of them in the middle of a ring, two faces, a dream match, like I said, Rock Hogan, crowd have eaten it up, and if you'd have just let them wrestle a match, I think it would have done better than what this was. The match was okay. The ending obviously was a bit of a letdown for it, but we can obviously see that it's building to another match later on down the line, which I'm okay with. But like you said, it's WrestleMania, and we should be getting the best matches we can possibly get, since it's the grandest stage of them all, the biggest event of the year. I mean, if they'd have done this in Rumble to build for Mania, then fair enough. But yeah, it is what it is, unfortunately.
We're going to go to the comments. We've got 2 here from Mcavee Wrestling. Thank you, Mcavee, for checking that stream. I agree with Josh on that one. Face versus face would have kept the crowd better. Well done, Josh.
Thank you.
Yes, let the crowd decide. 100% agree with Steve. Thank you for that, Mcavee. No, I agree. I think it was a match that was just thrown together because they needed Edge to do something. I like the presentation of Edge, though. This whole heel dynamic, the new entrance is pretty cool. I want to see this stable go somewhere. I don't want it to be Retribution where we're not going to get a payoff. So I'm hoping this goes somewhere. But anything else you guys want to add before we go forward to the next match?
I just want to make it clear that I'm not knocking the things that have been done. I've been knocking the timing of how you've done them and the pacing of it. That's all.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. I think the film with it is they were rushing through, wasn't they, again, for time. And obviously they showed recap packages again and again throughout the show, which just delays things, really. But go on to the next match. The next match, obviously, we had here was going to be... is basically Kofi Kingston, Xavier Woods, and Sheamus and Rich Holland. This was a 1.5-minute match. They didn't get time to do anything. Felt sorry for all the wrestlers involved. And Rich Holland crucially got the win. But for me, what's the point of putting them out there in this spot? You just did nothing, really. What do you think of that, Josh?
A lot of people blamed Undertaker for it because they had Undertaker come out for his Hall of Fame entrance both nights. Now, I think that's because there are some people who go to both, but there's a lot of people who buy tickets for only night 1 or night 2. And they didn't want people to buy tickets for one night and be upset that they didn't get to see The Undertaker. He was one of the most over aspects of the entire WrestleMania weekend. But because Undertaker came out, that's one of your time constraints you have with this match with the New Day and Rich Holland and Sheamus. They deserved better. Kofi and Xavier, have been very popular stars for a while now. And we know it was supposed to be a 6-man before Big E broke his neck. Pete Dunne, we won't call him Butch. He was supposed to be involved in the match. But yeah, it did not matter at all. You completely buried the New Day, and you didn't even make Sheamus and Rich Holland look like stars in the process. It served no purpose whatsoever.
I think for me, you look like this, Kofi was a world champion, Sheamus is a world champion. What have they've got nothing to show from that reign, you know what I mean? It's almost like they're down here now. What were your thoughts of it, Steve, and what transpired?
We've probably spent longer talking about it than it actually was. That says it all, really. From what I think was supposed to happen, this was meant to be on night 1 of Mania, and then it got pushed back to night 2. I'm not being funny. You had a 2-hour kickoff show on night 2. You could have easily put it in there. Again, they're running these 2 hours worth of packages just to repeat them every time through the actual course of a 4-hour show. But yeah. And then the result itself didn't make sense. You had the New Day coming out trying to get retribution for Big E. They come out in Big E attire, and then you have them losing. Then 90 seconds, it just honestly made no sense to me. I think the only one that really benefited from this was Pete Dunne because I think it played more into his character dynamic because at the end of it, you've got Sheamus and Rich Holland trying to pull him off. And yeah, so out of the 5 men that were in this, I think only one guy actually benefited.
Going to go to a comment here from Matty B. I felt bad for the New Day. Pete looked ridiculous. Should have kept it off the show. Let's be fair. Pete Dunne, fantastic talent. Never should be called Butch. That's a totally different subject for another podcast. But I just think it's one of them things. Threw him out there for the sake of it. It just felt totally unimportant. Going to go next to the next match. This is Pat McAfee versus Austin Theory. I really enjoyed this part of the match. I thought this match was really, really good. The crowd are really into Pat McAfee. Crucially enough, big shock. Theory got the pinfall on Austin Theory at the time. I was really, really shocked. I thought Austin Theory is the one you're pushing. I enjoyed the crowd reaction. What did you make of the match, Josh, and the finish?
I loved it. I mean, I don't know if we still consider Pat McAfee a celebrity, but when I was talking earlier about how the celebrities that Mania delivered, he was the third one I was thinking about. Yeah, we've talked about some things WWE's got wrong when it comes to Pat McAfee. I don't know how much input he himself has had in this. They got so many things right. I think from the very beginning, him coming out to 7 Nation Army, the thing about that is a last name like McAfee is not the easiest to chant for a crowd. But by 7 Nation Army playing, the crowd was singing that song through the whole match. It instantly created a way for the crowd to rally behind McAfee the whole time. He was so over. He had that wee man pop. I can't believe I'm saying that. But no, he did. I mean, every little thing that Theory did, Theory was over as a heel because of how popular Pat McAfee was. I think him getting the win.
That he is really.
Wait, did we lose him?
You frozen, yeah.
Yeah, I still got you, but Jonesy
we're back.
Oh, hey, he's back. Welcome
Sorry,
back.
No, he's gone again.
We've lost him again.
I'll give my thoughts while he's trying to sort himself out. Just to back off what you said, Josh, there, I loved this for everything it was. McAfee's like physical ability as well. That whole moonsault off the top to stand, like land on his feet, to springboard back up to get the sit. Oh man, I thought this was great. And like you said, yeah, Seven Nation Army. It helps WWE if you actually pay for some music that the crowd can sing along to. But I'm pretty sure if I remember somewhere, Vince isn't a fan of the crowd singing along to music, I think.
No, definitely. I think the feel with it, this was a really good match. I wasn't too sure that.
No, man, he's literally as soon as he starts talking, he goes.
Spot, but let's talk about next. The man comes out, and we're going to get this match. Yeah, brutal match. Like Vince McMahon, he's the patriot, but he's not in a state to wrestle. He's able to pin McAfee. Yeah, Austin can't. For me, it didn't really work. I get you have to set up the Austin spot that comes after, but please take Vince McMahon away from pay-per-views. What do you think, Josh? I thought it was horrible.
I wasn't feeling that part. It didn't really seem. I like having it be an actual match didn't seem to serve a purpose to me. I think if you had McAfee go over Theory, then Vince just comes in and hits him with a low blow, and you got Vince and Theory standing over him. Then Austin comes out and beats them up. That would have accomplished the exact same thing. I don't know the reason why you have to have Vince McMahon, who's God, what is he, 100 years old now, pinning Pat McAfee, and it wasn't even really a convincing finish. He literally did a terrible punt with a football. He did a terrible punt to one of the best punters in NFL history.
What about you, Steve? What do you make of the Vince McMahon? Pat McAfee.
I can justify Vince McMahon winning here. Let me give you a second, right? So you've seen the Rocky Balboa films, right?
Yes, yeah, I've seen Rocky.
The last Rocky film, Rocky Balboa, that montage where he's like, Rocky, you can't do no running because your knees are all shot. What we're going to do is start building some hurting bombs. And that's what they did with Vince, man. He's been in the gym. He built some hurting bombs, and then clotheslines just were enough to take Pat McAfee out. That's what it was, man. Vince McMahon at 76 years old is the new Rocky Balboa.
Oh, mate.
But no, there you go. Otherwise, it was absolutely terrible. Everything about it shouldn't have happened. Like Josh said, a low blow or something, have the two of them stand over him. But the fact that we got a match out of it was an absolute travesty.
Let's just put it like this, as you said, Steve. Like Pat McAfee's selling, give him his due, was the selling on the punches. It's like he was being shot or something. He was literally sort of, but really, really horrible. No place for this. Obviously, the reason why they did this is they are filming a Vince McMahon biopic, Vince McMahon versus the World, and they wanted to get some in action of Vince, but it's did nothing. So not only if Austin Theory lost any momentum by losing to Pat McAfee, Vince McMahon then took the momentum Pat McAfee had and got it for himself. And where to go? It doesn't go anywhere. Next thing you know, you get Austin come out. That was always going to kind of happen. Stone Cold Stunner, nostalgic, made sense. But for me, I just thought by this point, get me out of this match. What did you think of Austin coming out and a stunner again? Did you enjoy it, Josh?
I did, and I kind of think it might be similar to the Undertaker thing, to where you didn't want the crowd for night 2 to be disappointed they didn't get to see, the return of Stone Cold Steve Austin, so they found a way to sort of insert him into the show. I found it amusing that the stunner on Pat McAfee was an audible that Stone Cold called in the ring, because he was supposed to hit the stunner on Theory and Vince. But when they're toasting the beers, if you really know to look for it and they haven't changed the camera angles in the replay, you can see when he's toasting him, he's telling him you're about to take a stunner.
I agree with you. I think that stunner, though, isn't that the worst stunner that's ever been done? It's not like Vince McMahon, he's trying to back away from him. It was almost like Vince McMahon was confused of how to take it. And then you got Austin sort of with 2 knee braces running across the ring like he's Linford Christie or somebody, which is a sprinter for anyone who doesn't know, running across the ring trying to sort of catch Vince. But horrible. This goes back to what we said on night 1. You should be saving you should have current stars in these big spots, because this was towards the end of the show. I get you want to get the Austin payout, but for me, this went on too long. This whole segment match, it just went on and on, really. And I was kind of bored.
This introduces one problem there, and the fact is that Vince McMahon at 76 years old has now set the precipice for, look, I did it at 76 years old. Undertaker, I don't care how old you are. Austin, I don't care how old you are. I wrestled at 76. You guys can wrestle at 76. So that's what Vince's get out of jail free card now for getting legends to come back. He's like, I had a match at 76 years old. Yeah, all right, you took one of the worst stunners in the world, but yeah, I suppose.
Anything you want to add, Josh, before we go to this main event? The biggest match in WrestleMania history, supposedly.
Before we do, I forgot who it was, but someone had a little theory about why Vince sold that stunner so bad. You notice when Stone Cold does the kick to the gut, Vince drops to his knees. Someone suggested that, Vince has taken some bad stunners in the past, and he wanted this one to be good. He was so set on taking the stunner well and dropping to his knees, he totally forgot there's the kick to the gut before that. So that's what you see. What you see is Stone Cold kicks him, and Vince just goes ahead and sells the stunner. And if you watch it with that in mind, it makes a little more sense of what the botch is.
It does, definitely. I agree with you. I'm going to go on here, Matty B Wrestling. Pat also said on the show it was a spontaneous spot. I was aware of that. Thank you, Matt, for letting us know. I'm going to go into this main event then. So this was a match that WWE had been building for many months. Everything else has gone to the wayside to get this match. Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns, the most undefeated champion ever. He's had the belt forever. Brock Lesnar, obviously winning the belt at Elimination Chamber. For me, this was an okay match. It never really got to the point we had to. Obviously, the match kind of got rushed, and Roman retained. Roman was retaining all day long, and I just think it was a shame. I would love to have seen somebody brand new opposite Roman in this spot that had been that level to try and get the belt potentially. What did you make of the match, Josh, and Roman retaining again?
I think people expected Roman to be the one to win because we've seen Brock lose. We saw Brock lose to Bobby Lashley at the Royal Rumble.
Yeah.
And so we haven't seen Roman Reigns lose a match since 2019 when he was a completely different Roman Reigns.
His last loss was to Baron Corbin.
Yeah,
Anything.
right. So Roman, out of the two, even though Brock's been built up to be a beast, Roman's been built up to be unstoppable, or he has that God mode, as he refers to it. And so I think it did what it was supposed to do. But yeah, on that card or on that entire WrestleMania weekend, nobody will ever vote for it for match of the night. Both guys just kind of did their generic stuff. It almost came off like anybody ever played Super Smash Brothers, and you sort of just already have your finishers loaded, and you just kind of hit those one after the other. Then it's time to go home and wrap it up. And I guess that's probably what happened.
What about you, Steve? What do you make of the match and the finish?
The build itself was really good up until the point that they had Roman playing coward heel. That sort of killed the feud for me. I was looking forward to it, but yeah, like Josh said, it's like you said, like you play on a video game and you've got all your specials just ready straight from the bat, and it was spear, F5, Superman punch, Anaconda, all submissions and all this kind of stuff. I forget the names now, but yeah, it was for the biggest match. I suppose it is the biggest match in a sense of all time, but it just didn't live up to the hype, unfortunately. I don't know whether Roman suffered a legit injury during that submission as well, because you can hear it in the audio that he says his shoulder's out, and then the next night on Raw you can still see that it's playing him up. So like I said, hopefully it's nothing too major, but yeah, it won't go down as one of the greatest Mania matches of all time for me, unfortunately.
I think for me, where I kind of struggle with this is you look at other Mania matches we had before. We had the Ultimate Warrior, Hulk Hogan. That's an open match. You've got no idea who's going to win. Rock versus Austin, no idea who's going to win. This match, it was obvious who was going to win for months. I could have said to you in January, Roman Reigns is retaining, and that's sort of a downfall. And another thing I didn't really like about it, the pay-per-view ends, you just got Roman standing there. Where's the next challenger? You know what I mean? This was a point when, if you are going to bring The Rock back next year in Hollywood, you don't want to pay for him to be there. I totally get that. It doesn't cost much to do a vignette, if anything. Why didn't they do that? It just, you just sort of, they're leaving it with no real question about where they go next. What did you make of that, Steve?
Yeah, I know. The thing is, it's Mania in it, and it's not really a thing that they normally have at Mania, where you have your next challenger come out.
I'm thinking of Wrestle Kingdom.
Yeah,
Wrestle Kingdom, you'd see.
Yeah, Wrestle Kingdom. Yeah, Wrestle Kingdom normally has it, and AEW normally does it as well. It's just it gives you something to look forward to. Yeah. I suppose in the next night or whenever the next show is. But then, let's be honest, the Raw after WrestleMania is the biggest Raw of the year, so they can get away with not doing stuff like that because. Like we said, the viewing figure's already out, and it's the best Raw since January last year, I think, or something like that.
What do you make of it, Josh? Like the finish and sort of nothing really.
Well, I was thinking about. Well, I didn't have anything. I didn't have a problem with the ending of WrestleMania with Roman with both belts, but I was thinking about something a little bigger picture. When is the last WrestleMania where the main event, as in the last match you see on the show, is the best match on the card? I feel like we have to go pretty far back in time where that's the case. WrestleMania in the modern era has a pretty established history of, I don't know whether it's crowd burnout from how long the show is, or just the fact that, you have a lot of these matches that are put together by a lot of these different agents. But yeah, a lot of times there's a certain sense of the best matches already happened by the time you get to the main event.
I agree. I think you make an excellent point. One match I'd say that stands up to what you said is Shawn Michaels Bret Hart Iron Man match. That was clearly the best match at the time. But crucial enough, what I'm going to say, do we see Roman Reigns losing the belt to anybody this year? And if so, who does he lose to? I'll go to you first, Steve.
Like I said, the Money in the Bank match is going to be really important this year, and whoever picks that up, that for me is the only way I can probably see him losing, other than something spectacular happening with Cody or possibly Drew McIntyre, because Drew's one of the top faces, or even maybe Bobby Lashley if we get a Bobby Lashley Roman Reigns match. It depends on how like the interaction, or how it's going to work with Roman being on both shows, because obviously he is double champ or undisputed champ or whatever they're going to do if it's a new belt. But yeah, probably one of them three: Cody, Bobby Lashley, or Drew McIntyre for me.
Okay, and what about you, Josh?
As far as I can tell, I don't even think WWE have figured out what they're doing with this unified Universal Championship or whatever. I mean, we do have a little bit of a precedent because it is the exact same situation that Becky Lynch was in 2019. And if they go that route, then that means Roman's pulling double duty. But as far as Roman losing a title, his title at all this year, the only issue with it is that you've built him up to where it's impossible to beat him clean in a match. But even something like Money in the Bank, if it's some sort of fluke roll-up win or something to where it's a tainted victory, there's going to be a lot of people who don't like that and criticize that.
For me, I think the thing is, the way I think you beat Roman, if you have to, is a triple threat where he does have to be pinned. That's the way you go down potentially. It's a lazy way, but you do it. The original pitch plans, in September this year, there's a UK pay-per-view. The original pitch plans are Drew to beat Roman, supposedly. That's what I heard. I don't know how true that is, but I don't know if that's the place to do it, to have Roman finally lose to Drew. Would you be excited by that, Steve, obviously being here in the UK?
Yeah, it depends on where it is, because I think it's going to be in Wales though. So so unfortunately, it's nowhere near me. So if it was at Wembley, then yeah, I would have probably been a bit more excited about it, because obviously I could have gone to it. But yeah, for me, I very much doubt that it would happen. It's obviously, being in the UK is a bit of a long shot for them to change a title like that. But if thinking about it now that I've had a couple of minutes, I reckon you could be looking at like what Seth did with Money in the Bank and WrestleMania main event, cashing in on Brock and Roman. I reckon that could probably be it. You're probably looking at Mania next year. If they manage to do something like Rock versus Roman, have Roman beat The Rock, and then the Money in the Bank winner come out and beat him, or turn it into a triple threat match at the end. I think that's one possible way they can go.
I don't even think Roman versus The Rock needs a belt. I think they could go away next year and not even need a belt to be a main event. What about you, Josh? What do you think of sort of what we said of how Drew beating Roman potentially?
Well, this is the first I'm hearing about there being a pay-per-view in the UK. I think that you guys, your fan base over there with the pandemic, has waited long enough. Yeah,
we really wanted SummerSlam. They moved SummerSlam to July, and then that's sort of how they've gone. But
yeah, so
it would have been the 30th anniversary for SummerSlam over here as well.
Yeah, I mean, but something I was thinking about, one of you said something about you probably don't expect a title change on a pay-per-view done in the UK. We've got a little different precedent now with that, because we've seen title changes in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, great point. I think you make an excellent point. As an all, though, if we're going to sort of end with Mania, then I'll give the score night 2 a rated out of 10. So I would go 8 out of 10. I enjoyed it more than night 1. It kept me entertained. What about you, Josh? Score it out of 10, and what was your favourite match?
I'm going to give it an 8. Honestly, in terms, I always listen to the crowd. My favorite match was the Mcavee match. Like, in terms of what it was, I thought the execution of it was great.
What about you, Steve? Yeah.
I'm going to say 7.5 again. There's two different. I reckon there's two different shows. Night one is a wrestling show. Night two is a sports entertainment show, and I thought they were both fantastic for what they were. I'd find it really hard to sort of justify splitting them, but yeah, I will say 7.5 as well because I think they were both equally as good as each other.
No problem. So last thing we're talking about, I know we're conscious of time, we're just briefly going to talk about Ezekiel then. So obviously for Raw, one of the main talking points coming out of Raw, Ezekiel, the repackaging of Elias. What are your thoughts, Steve?
I honestly, he walked out and I was like, is that honestly who I think he is? Because the thing was, I knew the attire because I'd seen the promo shots of Elias wearing the attire with his beard. And then when he got into the ring and I looked at him and I was like, who is this guy? He looks like half the man he used to be. I mean, like even my wife saw a picture of him and went, isn't that the guy that used to have the guitar? And I was like, yeah, that's Elias or Ezekiel now. And she was like, what happened to him? Did he hit rehab or something? He looks absolutely terrible now.
What about you, Josh?
He looks terrible without the beard. A lot of guys you get used to seeing with a beard, you never realize how different they actually look up under there until they take it off. I mean, it's so stupid. And I don't know where they're going with this. I don't know whether they're going like it is Elias's brother Ezekiel, or this is Elias who somehow developed amnesia and doesn't realize who he is. The only thing that I feel bad about is that I was laughing at some of the delivery of it. Some of his stuff and the Kevin Owens, returning the lines back to him. I laughed a little bit about how ridiculously absurd this is.
I agree. I've got a couple of points, interesting points here. So this is obviously Paul Roma of 2022, his generic jobber look of the 90s. And crucially, I've heard this may be pitched by Chris Parks, aka Abyss. He obviously Joseph Parks. He's on the staff in WWE. It wouldn't surprise me if this is one of his ideas they've taken on. What do you think of that, Josh? Potentially,
I was thinking about the Joseph Park thing, but I always forget that Abyss is working for that company, and it never clicked that he might have been the one to push that through.
How about you, Steve?
I heard that he's actually supposed to be doing almost a Macho Man kind of thing with this new ring attire and stuff like that. But again, Macho Man had a beard, man. At least, man, he should have kept it or just trimmed it down and styled it, man. It would have looked so much better. But yeah, I heard he's supposed to be a Macho Man kind of person now.
And we've got one very last thing to talk about on Raw. This is the last thing. So almost joining with MVP. Josh, I know you know MVP personally, did a load of work with him. Do you think MVP could be a success? And where do you think this goes?
MVP will do his part well. Yeah. I mean, because MVP, as far as in-ring stuff, I know he was a world champion with us for about a year, but like MVP, I know him enough to know that if he never takes a bump for the rest of his career, he'll be very happy about that. He's good to use as a mouthpiece, He was good for Lashley because talking's never been Lashley's strong point, and even Bobby Lashley is a better talker than Omos. Whether or not it's enough to make Omos a star, it's still tough to call, but MVP will do what he's supposed to do well. It's up to Omos to find enough athleticism to deliver in the ring and actually turn into a legitimate star from that.
Do you think he's happy with this placement, MVP? Or do you think he's made the best of it? Because I remember you told me the story of how he came up with the Hurt Business. So that's quite a funny story. We'll get on another podcast maybe sometime.
Yeah. I don't know. That's a good question. I think overall he is, because MVP, the main reason he wanted to go back was he wanted to help get some guys over. And so if they had I don't know whether he approached them saying, like maybe it's the Raws leading up to Mania where Omos is on the mic and MVP approaches someone and says, look, this guy, he can't talk. Like, let me do it for him. Or if someone came to MVP and said, hey, like, we want this guy to turn into a star, but he can't talk. Can you help us out?
Yeah, of course. What about you, Steve?
To be fair, Bobby's promo on Raw I thought was a lot better when he was coming across as a face than anything he's done in his whole entire heel run. So, hopefully, putting MVP as a mouthpiece for Omos will work out a lot better for him. But the problem at the end of the day is, like, at some point, Omos is going to have to be on his own. So he needs to, I don't know whether he needs to take some sort of drama class or voice coaching or something like that. But yeah, that's the one thing he obviously needs to work on. From the point of MVP, I thought originally he'd come back because he just wanted to wrestle. He wanted his son to see him wrestle at WWE. So why he come back at the Rumble. And from what he's turned it into, from just being an appearance at the Rumble to working in essentially one of the biggest factions in the company in the last couple of years. All props to him, man. I say MVP. He's always had great character work, and he's always been a solid worker. So yeah, I'm glad to see him getting sort of recognition for it, and we all know he'll 100% be a future Hall of Famer as well.
Definitely. Going to go to the last comment of the stream, Matty B. I missed the Hurt Business. We all missed the Hurt Business. That was a great stable. But no, definitely. Okay, thank you guys for coming on. So this has been Jonesy Chats Wrestling. Join with Josh and Alex. Steve, if you've enjoyed it, please let us know in the comments below. Leave us a thumbs up. We may do this again. Have a good day, people. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.